as you start to overexplain, your amygdala, the alarm bell system of your brain, freaks out. It is clenching over you potentially being misunderstood or judged. This creates cognitive dissonance, a tug of war between your conscious mind's desire for useful communication and the emotional charge of insecurity from your subconscious, resulting in you rambling and overexplaining. If you are ready to burn bright instead of burning out, to lead without losing yourself, and to enjoy the life you have worked so hard to create, then keep listening. I'm your host, America's leader on rewiring perfectionism, CLG, and this is Perfectionism Rewired, the podcast. Welcome to Perfectionism Rewired. Today we are talking about overexplaining. Overexplaining is a classic perfectionistic tendency we've touched on in other episodes, which are linked in the show notes when it comes to emotions. Or if you lack self-confidence, overexplaining can be a symptom. Same thing if you tend to people please, you also tend to overexplain. And I realized we did not have a Perfectionism Rewired episode dedicated to the phenomenon that is overexplaining. This episode is going to give you the science behind overexplaining, why, as perfectionists, we get all wrapped up in this pattern of overexplanation, and how overexplaining impacts your health mentally, emotionally, and physically. Now, if you are someone that you don't think that you overexplain, another way that this tends to show up is if at the end of when you're saying things, you say, if that makes sense, does that make sense? You're seeking that undercover validation and approval from someone else when you are speaking. Another way this comes up, or I'll have clients express this to me, is they say that they give way too much detail. Like, I just start talking and I feel like I have verbal diarrhea. I feel like I'm oversharing. I feel like I am confusing someone else that I'm talking to. As one client said, I overexplain things and I end up overcomplicating them. And then it's a nasty cycle of seeking validation because I'm afraid that they think I'm incompetent because I just fucked up the already fine text that I didn't need to overexplain. It's like you overexplain because you want them to be confident in you, but then by overexplaining, you overcomplicated it and you need to seek even more validation to let them know that you're competent. You end up overexplaining again and again. As perfectionists, we have an extraordinary gift for being detail-oriented. We notice things that no one else notices. We also care immensely about what we do. We care about the people in our orbit. That combination of being super detail-oriented, like delighting in the details, and being someone who cares about other people, those are assets, and they become liabilities when they morph into overexplaining. When you really care about other people and are detail-oriented, you end up weaponizing those against yourself. If this is your first episode listening to Perfectionism Rewired, welcome. As you listen to this episode, know we are working from the perspective. Perfectionism isn't something that you need to fix. If you're having a hard time with it or you're struggling with it, it's just because no one ever taught you the skills you need. This is all based on scientific research. I know that there is a lot of misinformation out there, which is why every podcast episode in the show notes, there's a place where sources and citations that show you the evidence-based, scholarly, factual information where the science in every episode is coming from. I always want Perfectionism Rewired to be a resource you can trust for the most current and factual information when it comes to all things perfectionism. As you listen to this episode, I just want you to know the answer is not caring less, and it's not to just like don't pay attention to like all of those details. Those are two things that are assets. What we're going to be illuminating in this episode is like, what are the underlying, right? Like, let's get to the root of the root. What is happening underneath the over-explaining? Why is it occurring? And the impact this is having, not only in your conversations at work, but on your long-term health and wellness. So let's get into it. As perfectionists, we cross this line into over-explaining in an attempt to anticipate and avoid potential criticisms, to manipulate other people's feelings, means that you are trying to control how other people feel. We also cross the line into over-explaining to seek validation because we don't believe we are already worthy or that we can validate ourselves. So how did we end up here? Why is it over-explaining happens so often for perfectionistic people on such a deeply ingrained autopilot that you probably don't even notice it? Why is this? In your first 25 years of life, your brain is forming its understanding of the world and your environment. And if in those first 25 years you felt misunderstood, or you didn't feel like your thoughts, experiences, needs, wants truly mattered, you learn to do whatever you need to do in order to be heard. For example, if your siblings were more needy than you were, if you were the oldest child, or your parents were there physically, but not really present, or just completely emotionally unavailable, then you may have adopted a subconscious rule that you need to earn being heard, trusted, or listened to. If you grew up in a household where judgment and criticism were the norm, then your brain learned to over-explain as a defense mechanism. So you could preemptively address any potential criticism or rejection that might come your way. One of the biggest reasons perfectionists tend to be over-explainers is because your brain was trained that your self-worth was conditional and that you had to work for it. You had to earn love, joy, dignity, freedom, and connection. Self-worth is about understanding right here, right now, you are worthy of all the joy, dignity, freedom, love, and connection. Until the day that you take your last breath, you remain worthy every minute, through every mistake, no matter what's going on in your life. Now, whether you accept or deny your own worthiness, that's on you. Self-worth is not self-esteem or self-confidence. In the words of Dr. Brené Brown, we think self-esteem, we feel self-confidence. Self-worth is about what you feel and what you believe you deserve. This distinction can create confusion for a lot of us perfectionists who have high self-esteem, but you also find yourself feeling insecure. So let's say you just got a major promotion to your dream role in your career. Inside your head, you're thinking, I know that I'm smart. I know that I've done the work to get here, but why the F do I feel so inadequate and that I don't deserve this? You might even call it imposter syndrome. You know mentally that you're competent and that you're smart, but you don't feel inside your person or believe that you're worthy of having this role in a career that you love. Over-explaining indicates that you don't feel as if you deserve to take up space in conversations, in your career, or in relationships. When you are rewired perfectionists, you are connected to your self-worth. You decide and accept your self-worthiness. What I see with one-on-one coaching clients inside of Perfectionism Optimized is that they already have the validation and approval they were previously seeking out through overexplaining. They feel secure and safe in their person because of the interoceptive skills that they have learned through the EPIC framework curriculum. As perfectionists, we tend to overexplain in order to control our anxiety. But it backfires because we're not actually getting at the root of the problem or solving anything. If you find yourself over-explaining a lot, you probably also spend tons of energy carrying other people's feelings and trying to decipher exactly what they're thinking about you and what their impression is of you, and trying to over-explain enough so they don't get mad at you or they think that you're slacking. It really takes a toll if that is you right now, and it's exhausting. At the root of over-explaining is this subconscious belief that if you explain yourself thoroughly, you can avoid judgment and maintain the external approval you perceive you need. Over-explaining, it becomes this twisted control tactic. It's you trying to control how this conversation is going to go, even though the logical part of you knows that you can't control it. Now that we understand why perfectionists tend to have a deeply ingrained pattern of over-explaining, let's get into the science of over-explaining. Over-explaining is linked to an out-of-tune interoceptive awareness, where you're keenly attuned to possible rejection. If you get just a whiff of being slighted or ignored, you interpret that as a level 10 DEF CON situation. This is especially true if growing up, you felt rejected or that you didn't get paid attention to unless it was for doing something wrong. A subconscious rule that you have is that attention equals criticism and judgment. Even though logically you're like, I know that attention doesn't equal that, I invite you to throw out the logical side because that is not the ruling majority party inside your brain. The reason why you haven't been able to stop over-explaining is because you have only been approaching it from a mental, logical level. You're never going to change it if you continue doing that, because your internal systems are worried that you won't be accepted or validated and that it's going to happen again. You don't like how that feels. Instead of not over-explaining, showing yourself how resilient you are and how you weren't actually criticized and judged, your perfectionistic brain automatically goes to this vintage coping strategy of over-explaining. As you start to over-explain, your amygdala, the alarm bell system of your brain, freaks out. It is clenching over you potentially being misunderstood or judged. This creates cognitive dissonance, a tug of war between your conscious mind's desire for useful communication and the emotional charge of insecurity from your subconscious, resulting in you rambling and over-explaining. And usually you do it really, really fast. Like you notice that you are speeding up what you're saying because of this tug of war. It creates a waterfall of stress hormones being released into your body. And if this experience is on regular rotation for you, the mental and emotional turmoil that starts inside begins affecting your outside. This results in burnout, chronic anxiety, insomnia, autoimmune diseases, thyroid issues, reproductive issues, all the way to IBS and colon cancer. Why? You have an externally oriented cognitive style. What does that mean? That you are paying more attention to external things happening around you, like how the other person is thinking, feeling, or reacting, instead of paying attention to your own internal experiences. Why does that matter? Because when you are an externally oriented thinker, you have unhelpful or non-existent interoceptive abilities. Interoceptive abilities come from interoception. Interoception is your inner sense, literally. It is your inner experience as you go through the world. We have interoceptors all over, internally and externally. These interoceptors provide input to the insula of our brain, where we process emotional information. If you are an externally oriented thinker, your brain is not receiving information on what's happening inside of you. If you're not giving your brain that information, that's how burnout, chronic anxiety, autoimmune issues, insomnia, thyroid issues, reproductive issues, IBS, colon cancer, that is how all of them develop. Because there are these little tiny signals earlier on, but you're totally ignoring them because you're way more focused on, oh my gosh, my boss is yawning. Does that mean that they're tired of what I'm saying with over-explaining? Oh, their tone of voice means this, right? Because you're focusing on all of that instead of tending to the most important person in your entire life, which is you. Scientists have shown that our sensitivity to our own interoceptive signals determines our capacity to regulate our emotions and our susceptibility to mental and physical health problems. I am so excited about interoception. I've probably done at least 10 podcasts about it. Go to perfectionismaware.com and in the search bar, type in interoception. A bunch of episodes will come up. It's through interoception that you can recognize your learned patterns and habits and find the freedom to explore new possibilities. This process of connecting your own inner guidance through interoception is sometimes called embodied cognition. In today's age of disembodiment, being attached to screens and, trying to compete with robots, learning to attend to the signals inside of you and to direct your awareness inside allows you to reconnect to long lost networks of perception that helps you feel grounded and secure and for your self-worth to just be a duh type situation. Your interoceptive abilities is how you become present and gain a confidently integrated sense of self, which includes your self-worth. So why is it then, with this awareness of the detrimental impact your habit of over-explaining is creating, why are you still doing it? Maybe some of this information you've heard before, maybe some of this information you're hearing for the first time. Either way, odds are you'll continue over-explaining and you will probably use it as another reason to beat yourself up, which if you want to learn more about that, I will put links in the show notes to the mini-series on your inner critic. So why is it that you know better, but implementing it, the doing better, isn't happening? Why this is happening is because of the fleeting, poof, and it's gone, sense of relief over-explaining provides to you in the moment. Your exhaustive explanations are giving you this seductive illusion that you are asserting control over how you're perceived. You're a boss, you're taking charge. But by over-explaining, you're subconsciously perpetuating the belief that your self-worth is dependent upon external validation. And you're also reinforcing the people-pleasing, control freakness, overthinking, and the emotional outsourcing that you are actively trying to rewire. Also, over-explaining deletes your impeccable boundaries because instead of doing what's best for you, you're doing way too much for everyone else to gain their approval. Part of over-explaining comes from preparing to defend ourselves since we're anticipating criticism, and also from the earnest intention of wanting people to have confidence in you, right? Because you don't have it in yourself. What ends up happening most of the time is when you over-explain, you come off as insecure, which is exactly what you're trying not to be. Clear is kind. Over-explaining muddles the value of what you're saying with unnecessary information, which can be super frustrating for the person on the receiving end. Truth booth, what's happening with over-explaining is you're being really self-absorbed, and not self-absorbed in a self-care type way, but in a I'm blind to the way that I am impacting other people in a not great way. I have yet to hear someone be bold enough to say, hey, when you're focused on over-explaining, you're being really self-absorbed. Most people are too polite. Lucky for you, I keep it 100. When you're over-explaining, you are focused on needing to tell the whole story in all this detail, on getting everything out and making sure they hear everything, and speeding up because it seems like they're getting bored and you have to fit it all in. You are focusing on you getting validated. You're not active listening, and you're not focused on the intention of what you're saying or what's going on for anyone else. It's all about your addiction to external validation. That is no way to build connection as a person or as a leader. You summon power by becoming aware of what you're choosing, why you're choosing it, and what you could be choosing instead. This episode, we began to summon your power by you becoming aware of what you're choosing when you choose to over-explain, why you're choosing to over-explain. And in the next episode, I am giving you what you could be choosing instead. We are going to explore how you can stop over-explaining and how you can liberate yourself from this perfectionistic tendency to over-explain. If you know someone that tends to over-explain, I encourage you to send this episode right on over to them. If you're like, oh, but CLG, I don't know what to say, I got you. You could say, hey, I heard an episode of Perfectionism Rewired, and I think it might totally resonate for you like it did for me. And then, boop, drop them the link. Over-explaining is one of the many perfectionistic tendencies that we rewired together inside of Perfectionism Optimized, my one-on-one coaching that is exclusively for type A driven perfectionistic people who want to enjoy the life they have worked so hard to create. To start unlearning how to over-explain, go to CourtneyLoveGavin.com/optimized today. Listen up. Taking charge of your perfectionism is so much easier than you have been led to believe. Whether you want to stop playing out worst case scenarios in your head or be joyfully present, ambitious again, you don't need more rigid rules, guesswork, or hard work in perfectionism recovery. You need a framework that helps you understand and, most importantly, rewire your perfectionistic habits from the inside out. It starts inside of Perfectionism Optimized. Besides the obvious mental health and wellness benefits, rewiring your perfectionism is the fastest way to figure out what's really underneath your perfectionistic patterns. This radically different, proven, proprietary approach helps you succeed by dropping the contempt and judgment that blocks change. Discover how to trust yourself, take control of your world, and feel truly empowered to own your perfectionism instead of being owned by it. Head on over to CourtneyLoveGavin.com and start your transformation today.